This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today is Friday. It's May 19th, 2023. I'm still traveling. I'll be traveling through Monday, but we're going to do the show today. We'll do the show on Monday. And thank you for joining us. I posted a lot to cover today, so let's get right into it. The first article I want to cover is that the Ukraine is now already doing everything it can to say the counteroffensive is not going to be as big a deal. They're already lowering expectations, which is what I figured would happen. Russia is really in control of this war. Russia is not going to lose. And we're fighting a proxy war with NATO and the United States giving arms, weapons, money, largely permitting Ukraine another opportunity to steal millions or billions. At any rate, this ambassador of Ukraine's mission to NATO was basically saying the coming counteroffensive against Russia is going to take time, essentially. It's going to, said the Ukrainian basically, it's important to understand that one counteroffensive cannot determine the course of the entire war, she said. This is the Natalia Galibarenko, who is the Ukraine mission ambassador to NATO. So she's lowering expectations. Zelensky is delaying the counteroffensive because he said his military could suffer too many casualties. What he's saying is an insufficient amount of Western weapons. This whole thing's looking like a con to get more money and more weapons, and that basically we're going through what I consider to be the typical Ukraine game, which is to get billions of money to go into the country, loosely accounted for, and then the money goes missing. And with Biden in the White House, and Biden having a history of having his family get billions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars, who knows how much, out of Ukraine, it looks like it's happening again. So the main goal of the counteroffensive is to liberate as much, this is what this woman said, liberate as much territory as possible, the ambassador from Ukraine to NATO. But at NATO headquarters, I explained that we should not put all our hopes in one counterattack and inflate its importance. Well, basically, this is at George Mason University, Scars School of Public Policy and Government, Professor Mark Katz basically said that Galibarenko is downplaying the importance of the upcoming Ukrainian offensive in order to keep expectations limited. That's what I think is going on basically here. We've got a advance warning that this counteroffensive is not going to be a big deal. It's not going to fundamentally change the war in Ukraine. It's just going to keep expanding. Now, another article that is kind of upsetting again today. The world is, I think, rapidly moving towards more war. And I'm fearful that we'll have a nuclear war, especially with Iran and Russia getting together, and China. Iran has given pretty much a green light by the Biden administration to develop nuclear weapons. There's not much effort to stop them. So what we have right now is Iran and Russia are considering the joint development of 10 oil and gas fields in Iran. And this is following a meeting between Iranian officials and Russian delegation, who's led by Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak. So if Russia and Iran are going to develop oil fields to gas deposits with Gazprom, which is Russia's big government oil company, what you're going to see is, again, a lot more revenue going into Iran, the ineffectual nature of the sanctions that the U.S. has against Iran and Russia. The world seems to be ignoring our sanctions these days, which I think is a feature of our diminishing economic capabilities with the deficits that we're running, which are huge, which, again, we're finding that the economic situation in the United States is going into a very, very serious, deep recession. My new book on this with Dean Heskett of Swiss America should be out maybe even next week. I approved the final version of it yesterday to go into print. It'll be on Amazon very quickly, and we'll let you know when it's there. But the point is, I see now increasingly that this whole BRICS alliance with basically Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, those are the BRICS nations, the BRICS nations, are expanding. They're going to be meeting first week in June in Saudi. I guess they're meeting where they meet. They're meeting in South Africa, and they will admit a large number of new countries. They're pretty soon going to be 40% of the world's population. They're only about 25% of the world's economy, but that's going to change. And they're de-dollarizing. They don't want to utilize the dollar. Now, if Iran gets nuclear weapons, Iran has always said that they will use the weapons against Israel. I've written 3 books on this. 2006, Atomic Iran was my first attempt to warn the world that Iran is extremely dangerous. And terrorists, if they get weapons, will use them. They don't stockpile weapons, they use them. And that's going to be a problem here with Iran. We're right at both with Russia in Ukraine and with Iran getting nuclear weapons, funding Hamas, which has got rocket attacks almost daily against Israel, and Taiwan on the brink of an invasion by China. The world is going back into war. We're going back into World War. This is going to be World War III. It's already begun. It's hard to see these wars when they begin. Got to remember 1939 when Russia invaded Poland. That was the beginning of a war that had started many years earlier when Hitler annexed Sudetenland, when he took over Czechoslovakia, he came into Austria. These were the preludes to what became World War II. Well, we're in the initial stages, and I fear this time it could be a nuclear war that will develop. And I see it on the horizon. It's much closer than it's ever been. And it's a very frightening opportunity to come back to God, which is what this insanity, Satan seems to be loose right now in the world. Chris, my producer, Chris, would you like to comment at this point?
It could be a nuclear war, but it could also be a huge economic war. That could be more devastating to this country because of where the West is going in recent years. We're destroying ourselves from within. The outside, the BRICS are looking at this and saying, hey, this is not such a good thing. China and Russia are taking advantage. And they're probably thinking, hey, wait a minute, maybe we need to waste nuclear energy. We don't need to waste a lot of military expenses on America and Canada, maybe the rest of the West, because they're destroying themselves. We're just going to help them do that on the economic side. The dollar's gone, their power is gone. Otherwise, dollar gets stronger, they can resort to that nuclear war.
Well, I think they're probably going to pursue both paths, unfortunately. I think the economic path is already set, and I don't see an end to these wars anytime quick. Certainly, Iran's not going to suddenly decide they love Israel. And once they get rid of Israel, if they could, they'll just go right after Saudi Arabia. The Sunnis and the Shiites have been the centuries-long conflict in the Middle East. Of course, so have the conflicts between the Shiites and the Jews and Sunnis and the Jews. So the Middle East is heating up again. And when that happens, it's very dangerous for the world. Okay, let's continue going forward here. The next couple stories are back onto some of this nonsense from the climate change movement. And please take a look at my book on the truth about energy, global warming, and climate change. That's essential to understand how many lies you're being told, or we're all being told, about carbon dioxide being the temperature knob of the world. It's not. It's a minor influence in climate. But the Chinese now are ready. After years of preparing, they're getting ready to enter the U.S. car market. Now, once they do, the Chinese will have lower costing vehicles. China basically controls the battery market already. They plan to eat up market share from Ford, General Motors, and others by offering they're going to better quality and less expensive electric cars. The Chinese car industries like the NIO and Geely are eyeing coming to the United States. We'll be seeing soon Chinese cars in the United States. The Chinese EV industry has basically exploded. In 2022, U.S. sales of EVs were up to about 800,000, while Chinese buyers bought up about 5 million electric passenger vehicles. So now the Japanese car companies like Toyota and Honda have come in also with affordable, fuel-efficient vehicles that in the 1970s that knocked the U.S. car makers back. Well, now the Chinese are going to plan to do that right when you're getting everyone investing in the U.S. car companies in producing electric vehicles. Again, I think the electric vehicles are a bad idea. They're going to require an enormous infrastructure. They do take hydrocarbon fuels to produce the electricity. The batteries don't charge from nothing. And it's going to become a very, very difficult technology. Cars are heavier. The batteries corrode and catch fire. They're hard to put out a fire to extinguish the fires once they catch fire. There's a lot of junk involved in these cars. And what do you do with the lithium batteries, and how do you recycle all this? I mean, it sounds like a good idea until you think about what the practicality of electric vehicles are, and they're just not nearly as practical as hydrocarbon gasoline-fueled cars. Now, this next story, battered by inflation. 90 million Americans are basically today struggling to already pay bills. We see this because the credit card debt is burgeoning again. I follow these things with the economics, but what's happening is these are being published in credible places. I've seen it now. Bloomberg is reporting this. Newsweek has been reporting it. A large swath of American consumers are facing financial hardship because of the inflation, record high living costs. So credit card is now going to be close to $1 trillion of outstanding credit card growth. That'll be a threshold. I don't think we've ever had $1 trillion in credit card debt outstanding. And what's happening is about 38% of the American public are reporting difficulty in covering expenses between April 26th and May 8th, according to Bloomberg. This is new data from a Household Pulse survey. That's up from 34% in 2022 and 26% in 2021. So Americans in middle class is getting squeezed. And the squeeze in the middle class is going to continue as long as inflation continues about 5% or higher. And I don't think that the Fed has stopped inflation, clearly not. And with it continuing, there's going to be a urge on the Fed to actually continue increasing rates. Duke pulled down, please first, just a minute, our sponsors. Swiss America, which has this gold, the silver dollar offer. If you go to the top bar and pull down our sponsors, this Walking Liberty $50, if you'll just fill out the form, you can contact Swiss America. They do consultative selling. These silver $50 are being sold to 250 of them. You can buy up to that number. It's a first-time offer for new customers. And they're being priced at just about what the value of the silver is in them today. Silver will rise faster. You've got to have some gold and silver. The dollar is going to continue to depreciate. You're going to find that the dollar, which today, go to the grocery store and see what $100 will buy you. Well, in a few months, that's going to take more than $100 to buy that same grocery list. If you've got gold or silver will appreciate in value. And what I'm saying is, in the economic crisis we're going into, I think gold and silver are going to double. And they've done it before, 2008, then the 1970s, when we had similar economic crises. We're going into a very, very deep economic crisis. Please take a look at them. Let's go on to this European cryptocurrency regulation. Now, this is a remarkably important story, and I'm sure it's going to get underreported today, because Europe just approved the world's first cryptocurrency regulations, and the United States will soon follow. The European Union has approved a set of regulations to regulate crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, and tokens. They want to curb money laundering activities and protect investors. this is the beginning of the legitimization of the cryptocurrency market. And some of the cryptocurrencies are going to survive. I think XRP will, because it's being used in a lot of international credit transactions, international payment systems. Instead of trading into dollars, they're going to trade into XRP. And XRP it goes instantaneously. You don't actually have to buy dollars, which today you have to do to exchange, buy and sell goods with foreign countries. So the markets in cryptocurrency assets, this is MICA, M-I-C-A, markets in cryptocurrency assets. Legislation was approved on May 16th, which is earlier this week by the EU ministers. What these new rules do is increase transparency, and they create a comprehensive framework for businesses operating in crypto markets, including compliance with money laundering rules. And of course, after the FTX collapse, that whole exchange and token, you'll find that the governments of the world are going to need to step in and make sure they regulate the cryptocurrency trading, the markets, the exchanges, and also how the currencies themselves operate. And the collapse of firms like FTX, Alameda, Voyager Digital, there's been a bunch of collapses, filing for Chapter 11 and liquidating assets to pay back customers. I think the EU and the United States are finally going to recognize that cryptocurrencies are going to have a place. Right now, cryptocurrencies have been a little bit like gambling. And I'm saying to people, I have said, don't put money in cryptocurrencies unless you can afford to lose it. It's like going to the casino and planning to gamble with money that you could afford to lose. But if we do get comprehensive regulations, in fact, even the Biden administration issued an executive order to ensure the responsible development of digital assets. They did that in March. Now you've got the SEC still suing XRP. I think that suit is going to be settled soon. And I think that basically XRP is going to win, because I don't think that the judge is going to say that XRP was a security. It doesn't have the characteristics of a security. But at any rate, this new regulation is going to take time. Don't rush out and buy a lot of cryptocurrency. You're still speculating. But at the same time, it's going to be a alternative to national currencies and a way to decentralize control away from these governments, which are increasingly moving to totalitarian space. And I'm very concerned, for instance, about the central bank digital currencies, which will give the Federal Reserve the ability to monitor every single thing you do, what we do. The ability of totalitarian control with the technology we have available is an increasing threat. Chris, would you like to comment again?
The idea is they made cryptocurrencies cool and hip for the younger set, and now they're taking advantage. Older people who've been around for a while are saying, just like what we've been, and a lot of others are saying, hold on, crypto might be a good idea, but don't put too much into it unless you really understand what's happening.
And are willing to lose what you're investing.
Right. Meantime, while the younger set, some of them are making some big money off of this. And you see this on Twitter. Cryptocurrency, crypto, and crypto news constantly trends on Twitter. But really what it's about is people talking about how they're doing great with crypto, or they're trying to push a crypto ad here and there. People and a lot of those who are using Twitter or other social media looking at this like, I have to do this as well. Remember those old get rich quick schemes from back in the day? We used to hear the old snake oil salesman, or the medical carts, the doc medicine cart, those sorts of things. This is the new one, possibly. I'm not saying it 100% is, but the idea is it's more of a Trojan horse thing, where if it does wind up succeeding, there are going to be a lot of ways we're going to pay otherwise. And that's what you're discussing today, but that's exactly what's happening.
Well, it's going to take time for these markets to mature. And it's going to take time for them to sort out as the winners and losers. I mean, basically, in a increasingly digital world, the idea of national currencies and international trade is obsolete. And, basically you can trade. We're still going to have the euro. We're still going to have the dollar. But the dollar is not going to be the world's reserve currency. And China and Russia and the BRICS nations could easily develop a gold-backed currency, which would trump the dollar immediately. I don't mean Donald Trump. I mean, it would beat the dollar immediately. And if this, we're in a very fluid period of time right now. The world is enormously packed with debt. You got $33 trillion debt in the federal budget. There is no agreement yet on the debt ceiling. I'm sure it's a last minute, it'll all be resolved, and the debt ceiling will be upped. We'll go up to $33 trillion. We'll go to 35 trillion or 36 trillion. We'll eventually go to 40 trillion. Well, eventually, you run out of trillions. The money becomes worthless.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Considering that America has signed over our pandemic sovereignty rights to the World Health Organization, an international unelected entity, can we actually trust a similar organization to run a world currency?
Well, I hope we haven't done that World Health Organization deal yet. I know it's in the works. And if we do, we're abandoning our sovereignty essentially to China, because China dominates the World Trade Organization. And China has been doing this elite capture. China has been buying leaders around the world. The Bidens are a good example. Mitch McConnell with his wife, Elaine Chao, whose family is in China. They're worth billions of dollars. And they're only worth billions of dollars and out of prison because Elaine Chao is doing what China wants. China would be happy to eliminate that whole family. And that's the kind of leverage China uses. China has been suppressing the rights of its citizens. It's a very dangerous country, but comes and says, we want to trade with you. But China has ambitions to control the world, and they control the world for China. We're getting an increasing number of Chinese coming across the Mexican border. The United States we're in a period of self-destruction. And my book on the truth about energy, climate control, and global warming and climate control is that we're being lied to by a neo-Marxist agenda that really wants to destroy capitalism. They've demonized carbon dioxide because hydrocarbon fuels emit carbon dioxide. It's really a beneficial greenhouse gas, and carbon dioxide is a minor greenhouse gas. The major ones are water vapor, which they're not demonizing, obviously. And again, my book is a trilogy. The second book is now written. It's coming into print. It's going to be about the truth about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. And if you want to really understand this woke agenda, how it is the construction of a new reality, it is not based on fact. It's based on wanting it to be. It is a post-enlightenment idea that there's only subjective reality. So we can posit a utopia and create it. It's John Lennon, imagine there was no God. Imagine there were no borders. We can imagine the perfect world. Well, we're human beings, and human beings are fallen creatures, and the biblical principles still apply. And I'm trying to explain to people that this new woke culture is fundamentally schizophrenia, and it's producing everybody. We have to accept everybody for what they say they are, and they can change their identities. I mean, it is insane as it is to say, let's not use hydrocarbon fuels. And by the way, the green lobbies will oppose nuclear fuels because they don't want a solution. They want to destroy. And people have got to get their minds around this. If we want to really have your kids educated to be thinking about sex and what gender they are from kindergarten on, I used to puzzle what made the Roman Republic, which was the greatest pagan empire in the ancient world, go Christian under Constantine. I think the mothers finally got sick of their children being made perverts, and Christianity offered an alternative. Now, again, these are fundamental thoughts, and these books are exploring them. I think the books I'm writing today have a deeper, lasting quality to them that are perhaps, I think, more lasting than any of the books I've ever written to date. This last story I want to cover is that we're meeting now in Hiroshima with the G7. And it's interesting that as I'm contemplating that we're on the verge of possible nuclear war, here we are meeting in Hiroshima, which was the first atomic bomb drop. And Biden is proposing a new round of restrictions on trade with Russia, and the G7, NATO. They all have this anti-Russian. We're going to have to live with Russia. We've got a three-power world being created, multipolar: China, Russia, and the United States. If we demonize Russia, if we consider that China is no threat, that China essentially by the United States. I wrote a book in 2011 called America for Sale, and I warned that China was going to use this strategy. When we were going to sell our United States to China, sell the politicians were going to be first in line wanting some money, and they are first in line wanting some money. But a new round of restrictions will only increase tensions. And Russia wants to control a lot of the oil and natural gas production, and so does China. If OPEC joins the BRICS, which I think they will, you're going to have an anti-American coalition forming in hydrocarbon fuels, while the United States is self-destructing in hydrocarbon fuels. I think interest rates are going to continue to rise. The other thing I want you to look at in our sponsors is the Macmillan Agency. We did a video with Matt. We're going to start doing separate videos starting next week with the various sponsors, and you'll be able to see videos on nutrition, Get Longevity Meds, a website I'm creating for telemedicine will be up and running very soon. And it goes together with My Vital C, which if you take a look at My Vital C is this miracle molecule, which is carbon 60. It has longevity principles. People are saying I'm looking younger. I'm back. I'm going to do more podcasting and writing more books. I've decided not to retire. I'm very active again. And this is the Truth Central. Everything I'm trying to show you in the sponsors, if you'll take a look at them and support the show, I think you'll like all the sponsors. They'll benefit you with annuities. Annuities do very, very well in high interest rate environments. Matt Macmillan can help you trade out old annuities or universal life policies for modern ones that will pay much better. Just talk to Matt. There's a form there again where you can fill out and you can talk to Matt directly. He'll communicate with you. He sells by telephone, by internet. He's a young guy. He's very, very experienced. He's very bright, and he'll do you a good job. We also have the store up and running, so you can get gear. I right now with my hotel cup here, but we do have Gear Cup, and you can take a look at it. And gear cups. I want my logo, this logo, to be used very broadly across the United States. Please help us get this, the Truth Central. What we need right now more than anything else is truth. Any concluding comments, Chris?
I like that snazzin mug. That's what I can tell you. The logo looks great. The credit card debt, as you were discussing in the last couple of programs, has been absolutely staggering and amazing to people maybe observing from the outside. But if you think about it, we've had employment problems over the last 3 years, and those who are struggling to maintain their lifestyles, they're trying to keep a family going, or hoping, well, maybe next year's going to be better. We have to live on credit cards for a little while. We can pay these back. But then that kind of snowballs as well.
It's always a problem because you accumulate credit card debt very fast and you get rid of it very slow because they charge an enormous amount of interest, and it's hard to make more than the minimum payments, and people get trapped. And once the credit cards are gone, then they're further trapped. So it's a lose-lose cycle. And unfortunately, from time to time, people get into it. Right now, as I see the economy self-destructing, we're taking all the wrong steps. We're printing money like crazy. We're giving money to Ukraine like crazy. We're not monitoring the corruption. We're not, we've got the Durham report, which says the Russian collusion hoax was a complete falsehood on which we spent 2 years of the national agenda. Mueller wanted to put me in prison because I did not have a connection with Julian Assange. He wanted me to have. I refused to lie and swear before God and the judge.
Adam Schiff is doubling down on this too.
Yeah, well, This is an age of disinformation. I'm saying that we're being lied to consistently. And it's almost, if government's talking, first assumption ought to be they're lying. Why? Basically, that's the first question you have to ask in Washington. Somebody talks to you, okay, this person's lying. What do they want? We've gotten to the point where the more we get away from God, the more we get away from the fundamental values. And, our founding fathers told us that this Constitution would only work for a moral people who believed in God. If we don't, well, it'll be God help us. That's why I'm continually saying I think we're at 2 Chronicles 7:14. Please read it and please pray. We're going to wrap up for this week. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Friday, May 19th, 2023. I know things, everywhere you look, I look dark, and we've been here before. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And I think the prayer, we need to be on God's side. The more of us that support God through this difficulty, the more God will understand that we're worth saving. And I think this is a desperate period of time in world history. And I'm going to continue to report on it as actively as I can in order to try to wake people up. The 3 books I'm writing here, the energy book, the book on NeoMarxism, are called the Great Awakening Trilogy. Really trying to get people to think. And if you would, come back to God, get down on your knees and pray. We can turn this around. This is Jerome Corsi. I'll be back next week. Thank you for joining us. God bless.